Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be looking at a bunch of different deck options for the upcoming Historic Qualifier play-in. So this event on Saturday is a best of one Historic, so we're going to be looking at the best decks right now in Historic best of one. So we're getting the data from UntappedGG, what you see on the screen. We'll go through, we'll look at the metagame distribution, what you could expect on the ladder. We'll look at a bunch of different decks. I will kind of show what I'm most likely going to be playing. And then there's a couple other Mythic player decks at the end that we'll cover. So I kind of have some tech in mind if you kind of follow through the video, things that have been working for me pretty well in terms of just kind of fighting the meta. So speaking of the meta, Boros Energy is the meta. So if we look at Boros Energy, it's currently a 41% popularity in best of one. So probably about half your matches. If we go up higher, it's 43%. I don't think there's really any Mythic data just yet, just given that the season just reset. But Boros Energy is the deck you're going to have the most encounter on the ladder. Now, to be fair, within here, you're going to have a Jegantha version or just like a Lurrus version and a Lurrus version. Basically, are you playing Flage or are you not playing Flage? Considering all that, while the meta is this high, it's actually sometimes a little easier to approach it because you can start teching cards for it. So we'll kind of look at that in my version of the deck. I've had very good success with the various decks in best of one and best of three as well. So it's just a matter of kind of attacking the meta. The one thing I will say, like Mono Green Devotion is a very strong deck against things that aren't Boros Energy, but Boros Energy is a very punishing matchup for it. That usually kind of feels like free wins. So I'm actually going to pull up for an example of mono green later in the video. We'll take a look. I forgot to pull that one up, but I wouldn't suggest mono green. There's other decks that have a fair matchup, but I usually just a big smile on my face when mono green comes up. So things to consider. Mono white life gains and platinum's more like just a budgety. This one also can be considered the combo kind of eggs deck. That uses Aether Flux Reservoir with a bunch of cheap artifacts. We have 5-color Reanimator, which is Dragonstorm, which will cover, Azorius Control, Squirrel Twin, Mono Green Elves. When you're in the Platinum ranks, you get more of these kind of fringier decks, as opposed to when you move up, you'll see less of them as they kind of get beaten up over time. But you see the stark increase overall. Wizards has dropped quite a bit. It has not an unbeatable matchup, but a lot of your removals 1-for-1, and the deck usually provides multiple value spells kind of going from there. I think I've only lost once to Wizards. So we're going to look June 27th through to 4th of July. Happy 4th of July, my American viewers. Diamond and Mythic, 23,000 games. Now, one thing I am doing with Historic, there's a bit of noise at times with decks where I feel like the players are lower MMR. So the win rates are inflated. So this is like first Azorius Control deck. We're not going to cover it because this is not the way to build Azorius Control. 5 mana sweepers that don't do anything. Tezzeret's Gambit. This is just like, I just want to play Teferi Tribal with like Teferi's Protection. That's very slow. Lotus Field without Strict Proctor or Stifle doesn't make sense. Trying to rely on Tail's End. So you can't even do it on turn 2. You have to do it turn 3, which feels awful. So this is just like an odd configuration of the deck we're not going to be covering. So we're going to jump into it. There'll be timestamps and the deck list in the video description so you can lift to your heart's content. So first deck up, Boros Energy. So this is the Lurrus version of the deck. I have a couple comments on this one, but we'll look at the deck. So this one here, you have the Leonin Vanguard. You'll sometimes see Esper Sentinel on the slot. Static Prison, 2 bombardments. So this is the Soul Sister variant that's leveraging Voice of the Blessed. In terms of the best of one meta, you'll sometimes see Lightning Helix in play here. The Voice of the Blessed can help in the mirror. Just going over the top, it does kind of dodge removal that isn't Static Prison. Ampharaptor, Goblin Bombardment, we see the one of Sun Cleanser main, Mirror Breaker for those best of one players who haven't played this in best of three. Sun Cleanser's second bullet basically removes all energy counters from your opponent, and then they cannot get any more energy. Now, notably, Static Prison, how it's phrased, it can enter the battlefield, exile, and then once exiled, you generate the energy. So this is a way around the Sun Cleanser, so keep that in mind. Right off the bat, this mana base is wrong. So this version in particular, more than any, the density of white spells in this deck, especially the double on Voice of the Blessed, you can't afford to play really Sokuzan, and the double mountain is actually incorrect, I would say. So I play 2 Prismatic Vista, we'll look at my list, 3 Plains, 1 Mountain. This Sundering Eruption, while it can have utility to get rid of blockers, you usually could just go over the top of them. This, just having another red source when you're so dense in terms of, you really want to be able to double white on turn 2, and then these all kind of work against you in that capacity. So one thing of note there, but still reasonably high win rate there. We had the Boros Energy Zoo deck, or they're calling it Zoo. This is just like another version of the deck with Flage in here. Jolted Awake is a reasonable card in best of 1. So it allows you to just kind of be more aggressive. This is Jegantha version with just getting things back. 3 Lightning Helix, 3 Amulet, 3 Bombardment. The Bombardment, I usually like capping it at 2. While it's very effective in the mirror, drawing multiples is often a dead card. The one thing I don't like about this version is you do have a reliance on Aether Hub. The reason being is ideally with Aether Hub, comes into play, gives you the 3rd energy, so Amped Raptor doesn't whiff if it hits a Flage. Having said that, I feel like it makes the mana base much, much worse. Also, 4 Prismatic Vista, 5 basics will sometimes cause you a bit of an issue. So just a couple little thoughts there just on the mana base itself. But Lightning Helix can help in the mirror as well, gives you some reach against control, and is helpful against wizards. So my version of the deck. So I'm 34-6 with it. Kind of slipped up a little, but at one point I was 28-3 with the deck. So like 5-0, 5-0, 9-3, 2-0, 5-0. People started playing more, so then I ended up 8-3 in the last set. But you can see here 9-2 in the mirror, 6-0 against mono green, positive win rates against most stuff. So we have that. So kind of some of the tech that I've been doing. We'll kind of go through here. So 2 Sun Cleanser main. This helps in terms of the mirror. So I'm doing kind of a hybrid. The Soul Warden helps in terms of the mirror match to just gain you some life. It's also helpful with just Oscillate's Pride. Gives you a bunch of buffer in terms. Like I said, with the mana base, 2 Prismatic, and then you have kind of your setup here with the Plains and the Mountain. In all honesty, these pathways, I could probably just play more of the Pain Lens and like the Battlefield Forge instead. Just having access as many duels as possible can be useful. I'm on the Lightning Helix. Same kind of package, 2 Goblin Bombardment. Now, the card here, Portable Hole. I think going in, Portable Hole is better in the mirror than Static Prison. Portable Hole against the Lurrus mirrors obviously hits everything out of the deck. Against the, obviously doesn't hit Flage, but hits everything else. A little worse into things like Belcher, but Belcher usually combos you the same turn. Bigger things. It's worse against like mono green against Cavalier of Thorns or stuff like that. But what the hole does is it allows you to proactively play the card without having to have that energy up front. So there is a tax to it. So there's times where you're kind of conflated between not being able to generate enough energy and then being able to control the board. So this is a card that's been very useful for me. Just in terms of the mirror, lets you turn 1 play it without having to then subsequently have to worry about energy. You just play it, forget it, don't worry about it type thing, which is pretty useful in that respect. So that's kind of my take on the deck. I've been doing very well with it. I like it. You could see like last season, I just kind of went off with the deck, which was pretty cool. So then moving on, we go to Izzet Belcher. We tried a mono red version of Belcher. It was fine. In all honesty, this deck will win games, but it's kind of boring to play. But if your goal is just to win, then yeah, this works. So this is a version 71%. Izzet's giving you access to Magma Opus, just as more ramp early. Sink into Stupor. Basically, we got a bunch of new lands. The Rush of Inspiration also helps with the double pip. The blue also gives you access to Pact of Negation. So quick core of the deck is turn 3, you could combo win, which goes over the top. So with Ironcrag Feet and Goblin Charbelcher, you can cast and activate at the same turn. Outside of that, you have Creativity that can also help you find the Ironcrag Feet. You'll notice that with this deck, we're not playing the other untapped red MDFC because it's a creature on the front side. So Creativity would then fail to find Izzet Belcher potentially. Strike it rich for early mana, and then just a bunch of cheap removal. March of Reckless Joy can be used as some card advantage as well. But this one's, I tried, in my version, I played a lot more sweepers, 3-mana sweepers. I played 6. I think the version of having more 1-mana answers is likely better, all things considered. There's a video of the deck up on my YouTube if you want to see. Same with there's a few videos of the Boros deck in the various configurations. We then go to Izzet Wizards, 69%, nice. So a lot of the decks have picked up the energy package of a Galvanic Discharge and tuned the narrative. Just scalable removal that's flexible in terms of hitting planeswalkers. Where Shove Aside at times can be a sorcery speed. This is always instant speed, and it lets you scale a little bit better. A couple Slick Shots, a couple Valmars, Dreadhorde, Flame of Anor, Wizard's Lightning, all the same within the deck. Jegantha Companion. So pretty stable at this point. One thing, just be mindful. When you import the deck, Expressive Iteration may default to the Mythic version. Just put the uncommon one. You don't need to spend Mythic wildcards on it. Arena's been a little silly with that. We then go to 5-color Dragonstorm, which is really Jeskai Dragonstorm combo. 65%. So what are we trying to do with this deck? Well, you're going to self-mill yourself. Draw, discard, looting, Faithless Mending, Primal Command. You put cards into your graveyard. Then either what you're going to do is Mizzix Mastery back so Emergent Ultimatum, or Dragonstorm, you get triggers. But basically what you're trying to do is, if you do the Ultimatum, you're getting Omniscience, Dragonstorm, and usually like another Mizzix. It kind of depends, the third card, but they have to give you one of these to kind of go off. You could do another Change the Equation, actually, because if they don't give you Dragonstorm, then you could just set up another Solve the Equation for Emergent Ultimatum with the Omniscience in play. So it kind of works that way there. But what you're trying to do is, with the Terror of Peaks, you're able to then loop Blade Wings, and then they Legend Rule themselves. You keep targeting, and then it's infinite damage to your opponent. So that's one way there. You sometimes will see Scholar of the Ages as well in the deck. I think playing a single copy of Scholar could be reasonable, just because it allows you then to also have another target for an Ultimatum, and it can be picked up in the package with Emergent Ultimatum. We then go to Esper Control. It's really Azorius Control. They're calling it Esper because there's some surgical extractions, but it's Azorius Control. This is the ring version, so a little bit bigger. You'll sometimes see Yorion, but we got basically just a bunch of cheap interaction. Fragment, Authority of the Consuls helps with the aggressive decks, also just adding the life total. You have Union, One Ring kind of combo, Divine Purges, Supreme Verdicts, some Tamios in here, which is kind of cool. Just a bunch of cheap interaction. Brain Surge kind of helps you set up your draws. Some snaps, you're winning with Emperor, Teferi, Kalim in here, Shark Typhoon. So just a lot of kind of cheap. Kalim was really good when Wizards was around, because Wizards usually attacks with maybe 1 or 2 creatures at a time. You know, they're really going wide 3. But the Boros deck, it's more about the density of creatures as opposed to individual ones. But just a lot of cheap interaction with the deck. You're just trying to control the board and then win with any of your kind of individual threats. Castles, Hall of the Storm Giant mixed into there. Cameo Flip is actually really good against Boros. Just, you could pseudo time walk them. They have a lot of 1 power creatures, so it kind of slows them down in that respect. So a couple of these are decks I probably wouldn't suggest. I could definitely see people winning with it, but at the end of the day, it might not be enough, or consistent enough. So this is the Eggs deck. So right off the bat, what's missing with this deck, you should be playing 4 One Rings or Karn in the deck. But I would generally just suggest trimming on One Ring, trimming on Foundry Inspector, and then just finding space for 4 One Rings. But the core of this deck, what you're trying to do is use things like Semblance Anvil and Cloud Key, putting away artifacts. So you reduce the cost of artifacts in your deck. And then what you do is, with either Mystic Forge or, in the case, One Ring, you basically would draw your deck. You'll sometimes see Paradox Engine included as well. Like I said, Karn is another option that allows you to kind of limit these cards into your sideboard, so you can then just tutor it. With Paradox Engine, you can basically gain infinite mana. but usually you don't need it once you have enough of the cloud keys assembled. What it works better with is the One Ring because it lets you keep drawing and discarding, which is quite effective. Again, this deck can win, but I probably wouldn't play it. Kethis. So this is a deck that definitely can win games. It's another deck where you can disregard the life total of your opponent, which is very good in the Boros deck. This is a harder deck to play. But effectively what you're using is Kethis with a bunch of legendary creatures, including legendary lands to kind of replay stuff. The combination of Relica Legends, Rona, Kinnan in here lets you generate kind of pseudo-infinite mana. Same with like Emery, lets you rebite Mox Ambers. So you basically create a loop where you're able to consistently loop Mox Ambers to generate mana to cast Jace the Perfected Mind, which mills yourself enough times that you can keep casting Jace with enough mana to then recast Jace and then mill out your opponent. You could also just do Jace Wielder of Mysteries to win the game by drawing the last card. Again, this is a deck that rewards tight play. It's somewhat hard to play, but it is a deck that can definitely win some games. Selesnya Squirrel Twin, 61%. So there's a second element of the deck now in terms of the combo. So you have Basking Broodscale. So whenever one or more counters are put on it, you get to create a Eldrazi Scion. So this with Scurry Oak, same idea. Whenever counters are put on it, you get to create a creature. So the combination of either of these creatures, a way to gain life, so Johnny's Welcome, Case, Guide, or Soul Warden, plus Heliod, lets you generate infinite tokens, make things infinitely large, and then kind of win the game like that. This version's going with like Righteous Valkyrie is another angle of attack, Voice of the Blessed. You'll sometimes see like Trelasara, which can help you set up your draws as well, and kind of go from there. But this deck is very click intensive. And the thing is, while you could technically do it at instant speed on opponent's end step, you are susceptible to board wipes. There's something to keep in mind there. It's not deterministically like you're going to win the game, but most of the time you will when you do it. Some decks just can't kind of beat it, but you can just gain like tons of life. You're smashing that space bar. I have some older versions of the deck in terms of videos, like the combo turn takes like 5 minutes sometimes. Another deck, I'm just showing it for fun, but I probably wouldn't take this again to the event. This is Mono Blue Eldrazi. Basically colorless Eldrazi with Uggin's Binding. So this version of the deck is featuring a couple more discard effects with like Key to the City, as well as Phyrexian Scrapyard to discard Emrakul to madness it out. You have the Uggin's Labyrinth for mana advantage, basically generating 2 mana out of it, a bunch of cheap early ramp, Mindstone, Solar Transformer, Iron Crag. You also have like the Flesh Raker, probably not what you'd want. You're playing kind of bigger in terms of the deck. I would play just, honestly, I'd play Karn in this deck, would probably be my go-to, but you should also play Ugin in this deck. So I would just take this out, probably take the Hedron Archive out, and then play 3 Karns, 2 Ugins, maybe, or just go all in on Ugins kind of thing. It's your catch-up mechanism, which is kind of interesting, but the Uggin's Binding could reset your opponent's board, and then Emrakul takes over. All right, so Mono Green Devotion, you could see, let me flip by win rates. Okay, so this is win rate, so 61%. So again, like, it could definitely win. I just think you have a very rough matchup into the Boros deck. So the new cards you got on the deck were Fanatic of Ronus. That lets you ramp upwards of 4 mana for the turn. If you have Ferocious, you're also playing some of the MDFCs in Bridge Work Battle, which is removal and land, as well as Disciple of Freyles, which is really nice to just kind of refill your hand once you're kind of comboing. You have Kiors in here. This version is actually kind of interesting because it's not on Karn. You'll see the Karn versions from time to time. This one's got a Karn. Oh, okay, so this one's more of a creature package version. There's the Karn one. You could definitely play the Karn one. The Karn one lets you combo as well. This one's on a Grizzled Huntmaster plan that lets you kind of discard a creature, and then take a creature out of your sideboard. So a different way to kind of win. So this one's got some Eldrazi, Cityscape, Titan in the sideboard. But Trailblazer draws you cards. Fiora draws you cards. If you're going this route here, you're probably better off going Ubenwald Oddity as well in the deck. The Oddity allows you to combo out that turn and attack in with haste. So there is that version there. I will say I'm probably just going to feature the Karn version. So like this is the Uvenwald version. So you'll see like Uvenwald in here lets you kill that turn, and then you have like the Karn version as well with like Mindslaver, stuff like that. So I'll feature one of these. If people want other decks, you could check the past videos as well. There's a lot of the mono green devotion lists on my Aether Hub, so you can kind of just pick and choose, but I'll include this one. For reference, I just think in your Karn board, you should play Uvenwald Oddity as well in the deck. Now, 2 decks from folks. This deck from Azura, 102 and 46. They got it in at 18 Mythic this month, and this deck is pretty sweet. So we played a mono black version of this, or was it Golgari? Golgari. So it's kind of a cheat into play combo deck. So you're basically self-milling with yourself. You can Buried Alive your creatures. It's a kind of combo deck. But Emperor of Bones can animate Ulamog from the graveyard for 2 mana. It gets haste. Ulamog sees itself in exile. So it comes in as a 17/17 Annihilator 10 with haste. So that pretty much just kills your opponent at that point, wipes their board. Now, one thing, because how it works in terms of the stack, you need to go into full control, put stops everywhere, because when you go into the actual combat step, it'll bypass it. So it exiles and then it moves you past combat. But if you're in full control, then you can get it into play. We have a Golgari version if you want to see it in action. Similar concept. That kind of combos out there. This version's also got like a Dreadhorde package, so lots of early interaction, Galvanic, Fatal Push, Lootings, Thought Seizes, Buried Alive, Claim to Fame in here, just more ways to kind of get back your various creatures, which provides some value. So even if they kill it, stuff like that, you keep getting it back. Fables in here for some value as well. You might want to play like a 1 of Kroxa, could be reasonable. Like Trim a Buried Alive just gives you some redundancy there as well. No reason for the sideboard in here. You're not playing any of these cards, so I'll delete out the sideboard. And then the other deck is 50 and 28 by Fun Haters. This is the Shifting Woodlands combo deck. So this is another kind of self-mill combo deck, which usually do pretty well in Best of 1 because there's less graveyard hate. Or this deck, think of it as almost like Omnitel from Timeless, but in Historic. So what you're doing, self-milling. So you have like Traverse the Uvenwald can find combo pieces, Salvage, Malavant Rumble, Wayfinder, Scrapwood Mutt, all ways to kind of put cards into your graveyard. The Archdruid's Charm can help you find your Shifting Woodlands. With Delirium, you copy Omniscience, Omniscience, and then you go Fae of Wishes, then combos out that turn. So how the combo works, Fae of Wishes, Mastermind's Acquisition, then cast Mastermind Acquisition. Then you get back Scholar of Ages. Scholar of Ages gets you back your 2 Mastermind's Acquisitions. You Mastermind Acquisition for Approach Second Sun, and then you Mastermind Acquisition for Approach Second Sun, win the game. So that's kind of the combo of the deck itself. How many cards am I missing from this? I might play this. I might try to make for good content. I'm only missing 2 cards, so finally give in and craft my Omniscience. Omniscience, Joe. So that's it for the week. Let me know what you're going to be playing, what you think of the format, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.